Greetings, computer science enthusiasts. We're ready to start talking about loops today. So I'm going to walk you through the code to follow the directions that were given in exercise 3.11. So the first step, it says create your sprites using the create sprite blocks. So where do we find the create sprite blocks? We find them right here. And I'm going to just create two sprites. So I'm going to just drag this over here, and I'm going to drag that over here. I'm going to create the first sprite. I'm going to call it Sprite A. And the second sprite, I'm going to have it be Sprite B. Now, I don't want them in the same location. I want to give a little bit more information than I normally do because I'm not going to assign an image to these. So this first sprite, I'm going to locate at 100, 200, and then I'm going to give it a size. So I'll put in two more parameters, and we'll do 75, 75. And then sprite B, I'm going to put it at 300, 200, and I'm also going to make it 75, 75. Now what this does is this basically will create 75 by 75 placeholder that's going to be where our sprite is. And the first one is going to be over 100 down 200. So it'll be toward the left side of the screen. And the other one's going to be over 300 down 200. And they're both the same size. Notice how I just increased their dimensions by clicking those parameter buttons. And notice that this is as big as you can go. So this is with just the create sprite. This is the absolute biggest you can get. So basically I created a square thing on there. Let's see what happens when I draw sprites. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in the draw sprites. And then when I run this, you just see it's two squares. So that's the default background for that. You could go in and you could change that if you want to. I think I'm fine with that. Alrighty, so now we've created our sprites, and what we need to do is we need to, let's put a label on those sprites. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the drawing, and I'm going to create a fill color. And that fill color is going to be white, because I think white lettering will show up really nicely on the backs of these gray blocks. And then I'm going to say the text size. So if you go down here and you look at all the different text, I've got text size, and I'm going to make it 50 pixels. Okay. And then I'm going to create some text. So go down here to text, and the first piece of text I'll create will be the letter A. And I'll put A at 8220. If I put A at 8220, it should be over far enough that it'll show up in Sprite A's box. Because remember, this 100, 200 is the center. So if I start the text over here, and if I start it down a little bit more, it should be inside that pretty good. And then I'll do some more text. We'll do B. And then we'll do 280, 220. Now let's see how adding that code has altered this. So I put the letter A inside this sprite, and I put the letter B inside this sprite. All right, so basically I've labeled these two boxes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a condition where on the console, depending on which sprite I click, it tells me a message. So I don't really think I care how many times the sprite gets clicked. It might show multiple messages on the console, but I just want to show that I can link a console message to a specific sprite click. And I need to decide which sprite I'm clicking. So that's where the conditional comes in. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the if statement. So the if statement basically allows the program to, while a program is running, it makes a decision. So I can decide if I'm going to do one thing or another thing. So in this case, I want to check and see if I've clicked over the A. All right, so to do that, inside the if window, I'm going to check to see if the mouse pressed over Sprite A happened. So I'll go to World, and I'll go down to Mouse Pressed Over. And of course, there's Sprite in here, but we don't have a Sprite. We have a Sprite A and a Sprite B based off of our variables. So this will be the if statement that's associated with Sprite A. And then I think I'll just have it print out to the console. A was clicked. And now I'm going to use a separate if statement. And I'm going to use the same option here, mouse pressed over. However, now I'm going to code this one for Sprite B. And then I'll do another console message. And this console message will say B was clicked. So before I demonstrate this code, let me walk you through what's happening here. So at the start of our program, we create two sprites, A and B, and we give them these starting locations and these dimensions. The automatic background was apparently dark gray, so that's probably a low 3 RGB values that will just make it visible on this white screen. And we create Sprite B the same dimension, so it's the same size box. However, I started it at 300, 200. So now these two things are in creation. Without this function thing, you never would have seen it though. They would just be sitting behind the scenes. Now I go into the draw function, which is what's called when you click the run button, it calls the draw function. I believe it calls the draw function over and over again. So it just keeps drawing this on the canvas over and over. And then we tell it to draw our sprites, which we do. And then we fill with a white background some text. And so the text is going to be size 50, and we're going to put the letter A in the first sprite, and we're going to put the letter B in the second sprite. That just lets me know which sprite is which sprite. Now, mouse over pressed A. This right here, this whole block, is what's known as a Boolean return value. And what I mean by Boolean return value is that I am going to evaluate this conditional right here based off of whether or not this thing right here in yellow returns a true or false. It will return true when I'm on Sprite A and I click the mouse button. Otherwise, it returns false. So as these things keep redrawing and redrawing on this screen here, this is continually giving me back the answer false. The same with mouse pressed over Sprite B. I haven't clicked on B yet. I can mouse over B, but I haven't clicked on B yet. So it's continually giving me a value of false. However, notice what happens when I move over here and I click. Now it registered. I just clicked once, but it's the computer programming is so fast, it was like I clicked it 3 times. And so it says A was clicked, A was clicked, A was clicked. We already know how to put in some timing issues to slow that down. We'll get more into how you develop that on your own later. But for right now, I only care that it just noticed that I clicked it. I don't care how many times it thought I clicked it. If I click B, notice I get a different message. B was clicked. So every time I click B, I'm going to get the B was clicked message. Every time I get A, I click A, I'm going to get the A is clicked message. And that is based off of these two if statements. If you go back to your flow chart from the document, you'll notice that the flow chart prints out a message if this is true and goes back and doesn't print out a message if it's not true. And the same here. This is a true statement, and when this is not true, nothing happens. So B was clicked, B was clicked. See, I'm clicking a lot of B. So if you extend your console up here, you'll see that I clicked a lot of B. Okay, and that's basically how conditionals work. They basically allow you, while your program is running, to make a decision and decide what to do. And if you do that thing, then it calls another set of code that might or might not get called had you not done anything at all. That's called flow of control. And flow of control is a broader term that includes conditionals and loops and other things that keep the program from executing everything just sequentially. So I hope you found this information useful. And until next time, I want you to keep on coding and keep on creating.